welcome back to another week of the 13 Sports Coaches Show. I'm very excited to be joined this week by Washburn Rural girls wrestling coach Damon Parker. Coach, thanks for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me, Katie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we're a little over a month into the season at this point. Just how's it going so far for you guys?
It's going really well. This is a fun crew that we've got here, and I always tell our kids, it's like, man, we don't even set any kind of team goals until we get to Christmas break, because you never know what you have. Like everybody, we want to win a state championship. Well, so does everybody else, right? Do you have the horses to be able to do that? I don't know, and you never know until you get to Christmas break. And so now that we've had a little bit of a sample size kind of under our belts, unfortunately, there are a lot of other solid ones out there too that are going to have something to say about what we do this year. But we really have gelled pretty well so far, and look forward to seeing where we go the rest of this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've had the people to win state championships for the last 2 years. You're going for the three-peat now. You guys are just like the Chiefs. How are you and the girls, like, how do you go about not letting that get to your heads and just kind of drowning out that pressure to repeat?
Because we don't talk about it. It's not a thing. It's like the ultimate secret weapon that makes us more dangerous than anybody else is not caring about whether we win or lose. There's nothing that makes you more dangerous than not caring about the outcome. And that's what we've always preached. We have never made winning a state championship be one of our goals, and it never will be one of our goals. Now, when we accomplish them, that's cool. It's fun, right? But it's never what we set out to do. And when you remove that pressure from kids, especially in a sport like wrestling, then they're a little bit more free to just go out and enjoy the sport for what it is. This is something that manufactures adversity for kids that they have to find a way to work through. And when you boil it down to something little like that, it's like, okay, yeah, I can find a way through this 6-minute match. It's real tough to win a state championship, but if you find your way through enough little 6-minute matches, then you got a pretty good shot at the end of the year.
Yeah. What are those goals that you guys assigned for yourselves then?
Well, I have the same overarching program goals every single year for our kids. And again, it has nothing to do with winning, losing, all that kind of stuff. But those goals are, we want to give our girls in our program strength, a voice, a platform from which to use that voice. And then we want to give them an experience that's so positive that when they have daughters of their own, they insist that their daughters get involved in it. And that's it. And if we do a good enough job of providing them with those 4 things, then no matter what size trophy they hand us at the end of the year was a success. And to answer probably what you were getting at with your question a little bit more succinctly, we sat down and talked. It's like, look, we have the people on this team to win a state championship if that's what y'all want. Okay, and if you want to win a state title, we'll put you in a position where you can do that. I can't promise you anything, but we'll compete for one. But that's going to change what our practices look like. And if you just want to have fun this year, awesome. Like, we can do that too. And I can guarantee you that we won't have as good of a chance at winning the state championship, because when it's just about having fun, then like practices are going to look a little bit different, right? So I just got some input from them, and the answer that I got back was pretty similar to what I get most years when I ask the same question. It's, we want to be in a position to compete for a state championship, but we don't want to lose sight of what's important. And that's enjoying each other, enjoying the sport, and becoming better individuals and becoming more cohesive as a team. And so that really means that on our end, not a whole lot needs to change. That we're always growing, we're always evolving, changing the way that we do things. But I don't think we need to make any wholesale changes, other than kind of turning up the heat in the mat room a little bit. And not the literal heat, but the figurative heat. Well, maybe the literal heat too. I don't know.
It's hot in there.
Yeah, well, we should be a heck of a lot of fun to watch this year. And I never promised anyone that we're going to win a state title or anything like that, because there's so many things that have to go your way. And people forget just how hard it is to win a wrestling duel. And there's not a kid on this roster that has ever been a part of a loss in a wrestling duel. Not one of our seniors was on the team the last time our program lost a duel. So it's like, just the fact that we're able to do that kind of thing, and then take that a little bit further. And we've now competed against over 200 teams so far this year. Not one of them's beat us yet until we got to that Baser Linwood tournament, when we were missing 1 or 2 kids out of our lineup. And that just shows you how important every single individual in this program is, or not just in our program, but in the sport in general. Because you might have the best team you've ever had, and then one kid gets hurt, and then it all goes out the window. Like, that's how this works more than any other. And like we had a great example of that when I was coaching our boys program here. Probably the best boys program that I ever coached wasn't the one that won a state championship. It was the one that got fourth place at state, because right before the state tournament, at our league tournament, we had a kid named Austin Fager, who was the presumptive favorite to win a state title as a freshman. And he broke his jaw at the league tournament and he was out for the rest of the year. And so rather than those 30 points we would have gotten for him, we got a big goose egg there. And when we end up in fourth place as a team. So, your team trophy at the end of the year is not always indicative of how strong your program is. And there's no way that you can guarantee that your team's going to win a title, because you don't know what high school kids are going to do, who's going to be healthy, all that good stuff. But one thing I can promise is we're going to be a heck of a lot of fun to watch, and we'll be in the mix.
Yeah. Do you think that kind of goes back to, I feel like, these days, sometimes the pure joy of playing sports sometimes goes out the window when there's too much pressure on, competing, winning things. Do you think you just run a program that just really focuses on, the good reasons to play sports?
We certainly try to. That's our mission anyway. Though we don't always accomplish that mission, but that's what we try to do. And there's so many other outside influences that we're fighting against when we're trying to do that. Sometimes that's other kids that aren't educated as far as how the sport goes, and they say, "Oh, you're going to win state championship again this year," and it's like, man, like you're putting your focus on the wrong thing. We have parents that do that sometimes. We have people in the community, and then just people in the sport at large, whether it be people that comment on social media or all this. Like, so there's so many outside influences trying to pull our girls' attention away and trying to get them to focus on something that's not important. So we try to, as best we can, at least for 2 hours a day, put a bubble around our wrestling room and just say, like, no, what's here is what's important. And this is where you're going to learn all of those life lessons that 20 years from now are going to make you want to get your daughter involved.
Yeah. When you think back to your early days of starting to coach the girls team, did you imagine that you'd have such a program of this stature that wins, state titles and is dominant in the 5 and 6A scene?
Yeah, to be honest, short answer, yes.
I like it.
I knew that, and again, the greatest weapon that you can have is, and what makes you the more dangerous than anybody else is not caring whether you win or lose. And I knew that was the approach that we were going to take from the beginning. And I knew that I was going to surround our girls with the best possible adults that we could surround them with. And my wife is my head assistant coach. And just today, she was handling a situation that there's no way in the world that I would have ever been able to handle with a high school girl. And all of our coaches are like that. And so I'm in a position where, we have such a strong support system for these kids that I don't see a way that it could be unsuccessful. Even in the public eye, and I know the public eye, like they value wins and losses a heck of a lot more than we do. And that doesn't mean that we don't try to win, because we absolutely do. But even still, those tangible outcomes that the public wants, I think if we've got a strong enough support system for our kids and they know they've got a bunch of adults around them and teammates that have their back, like it's going to be pretty tough not to win.
Yeah. And you've already, sent girls off to college to go wrestle. Just what does that say about the growth of girls wrestling in Kansas, that this is becoming more common now?
It's huge. It started in 1998. Texas and Hawaii both sanctioned in the same year, and it's just kind of slowly spread like this. And women's wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the world, regardless of age or gender. It is just absolutely exploding. And we are now getting to the point where when we talk about some of the best wrestling technicians in the world, we're no longer just talking about men. And that's a pretty special thing. And we've been fortunate enough today. Molly Spader committed to go wrestle off in college, and she at Southeast Community College, and she's the 22nd girl that we've had in the last 5 years that has gone on to wrestle at the next level. Because it's exploding there as well. And we are at a really, really cool pivotal time in our country's history where we're going to be able to look back and say that this is the decade that saved wrestling. It really did, because wrestling was a dying sport, because it was something that on the boys' side, you had to specialize in. You had to do it year round, and it wasn't much fun, because a lot of those things that you see in the movies, and like that was real life, like guys living in a sauna and not eating, and just they have to dedicate their entire lives to this. And a lot of kids are like, screw that, I don't want to do that, I want to be a high school kid, and so like if you look at the participation numbers in boys wrestling, it was a steady nosedive. And then all of a sudden girls wrestling takes off, which it was a a 2 decade overnight success story, right? Like starts in 98, but like it wasn't until 2018, 2019, around then that it really started to take off. And and once girls wrestling starts to explode, then guys start becoming involved again. And if you look at the trajectory of male participation, it's down, 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 down. Then girls starts, and then boys participation goes back up. And so we're going to be able to sit back someday and not just say, man, all of these girls were able to get college educations because of this sport. We're going to say all of these girls saved this sport because they absolutely did.
Yeah. Since you've started coaching girls wrestling, just how have you seen the takeoff Kansas wise in high school with how many more girls, how many more teams you guys play? How many more high schools have teams now?
Yeah, every year it gets a little bit bigger, and I've always told our girls we will travel to the ends of the earth to find someone that can kick our tail, and so that's why we drive all the way into Nevada, Missouri, and we go up to Council Bluffs, Iowa, and like we'll travel all over the place. And every year when we do that, those big national level events get bigger and bigger and bigger, and there are more and more females that are attending these events. And like the Council Bluffs Classic that we go to, where they've got 12 mats out on the ground, eventually they're going to have to split that thing because it is a co-ed tournament. Like they've always had a boys tournament going on. 4 years ago, they started up a girls division, and now the girls division is growing to the point where I'm not sure how many years they can keep that thing together. 12 mats isn't going to contain it. They're going to have to split it. And that's just a testament to, especially in the Midwest, how much girls wrestling is growing. Now, if you're asking me on a on the national scene where Kansas stands, I would put uh, I would put California at the best state for women's wrestling, and I would put Kansas at number two, and that is number two with a bullet. We're rising. Um, Reason being, quite honestly, I think we take it more seriously than a lot of other states do, and not that they don't take it seriously, but I think we kind of got the jump on several of them. And if you're talking about just the elite top end talent, probably not from Kansas. But if you're talking about overall strength of high school programs in the state, I would put Kansas up against just about anybody out there.
I like it. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize how, for a long time, equipment and uniforms that are specifically made for girls has been an issue. How have you guys tackled that within Washburn Rural, and have you seen that around Kansas be tackled?
It's an easy fix, man. Wrestling is the cheapest sport to add, and if I hope that somewhere out there there's an administrator or a school board member that sees this, who turned down starting a girls wrestling program, and it helps them realize that they need to get their butts out of the stone age and get on board with this thing, because it is the cheapest sport that you can add. You've already got wrestling mats at your school. You've already got headgear at your school. All you need to do is order some singlets. I got a dude in Pakistan I order them from for $13 a piece. Don't tell me it's too expensive to start girls wrestling. This is something that can be done by just about anybody that wants to. And it's if it would have been 20 years ago, again, I bet Texas and Hawaii had a heck of a time with all that stuff back in the day before the internet really exploded. But now it's like you can find that kind of stuff, and you can't use that as an excuse anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Is it something that your girls have ever talked about themselves? I mean, I know there's Yes Athletics. I'm sure you know what that is.
Absolutely.
Did a story on that a few months ago, and just, it's so easy to get now, but do you hear your girls ever speak about, hearing other stories or their own personal experiences of the struggles with that?
Not so much. Like we've been around a while, and Yes does amazing work. They're awesome. I'm glad you've had them on. But we really haven't had too much issue with it because we've had our program humming for 5 years now. So they just kind of pass that knowledge on to the next group of girls that comes through. And that's something that I have learned so much switching from coaching boys to coaching girls. There's so much about female athletes that I just didn't know. From the way we organize practice to the way that I address the team to what they wear. And I just assumed, and this was such a great lesson for me, because I just made this assumption that girls would not want to wear wrestling singlets like the boys do. Because you can wear a two-piece, like a compression shirt and shorts. And the first set of uniforms that we bought 5 years ago had the baggy MMA style, like boxing shorts that you're allowed to wear for wrestling. And I bought those, and I bought some compression shirts, and the girls absolutely hated them. And like we literally cannot give that stuff away. Now I bought some different versions of that are much more modern. Like a lot of the girls really dig it, but they want to wear the singlets just like the dudes do. They want this to be their own version of exactly what the guys have. And so every year we try to get a little bit closer to that.
I love it. Well, you're also a big advocate for mental health. How do you incorporate that into your coaching of coaching high school girls
Um,
specifically?
it's funny you should ask. And I almost don't want to go into too much detail because I think this is one thing that sets our program apart from a lot of them. We had a practice last week on Friday. There was a 2-hour practice where we never stepped foot on a wrestling mat, not for a second. And today we had our 2-hour practice and we didn't even start our warm up until we were an hour in. We do a lot of journaling. We do a lot of self-reflection. We do a lot of meditation, all kinds of things that I think an outsider that's like, if they came here from 30 years ago in a time machine and they look, they're like, oh my God, this dude is wasting half of the practice. And then I would tell them to go look in our trophy case and tell me it doesn't work. It's that is so much more important than wrestling moves. As I told him the other day, it's like, man, every kid out there, whether you're from the best team or the last place, you know how to shoot a double leg takedown, you know how to run a half Nelson. We all do. Okay. But it's the people that can perform in high pressure situations that are the ones that bring home plaques from state. And it's the people that can control what goes on between the ears that can perform in high pressure situations. And to learn to control what's going on between your ears, you got to learn how to manage your emotions. So you step that back until we do all these different mental health exercises in practice. And hopefully it pays off, not just when they go wrestle in those high pressure situations, but when they see real adversity later on in their life, like the actual stuff that life is going to throw at you, not the stuff that we kind of manufacture for the kids to go do.
Yeah. Do you get feedback from the girls about how it helps them?
Yes. I was just talking with one of our kids about this morning. I got a series of letters from some of our alum after they had graduated. And it is rare that you get a handwritten letter in the mail from a high school kid. And to get a series of those says something. And most of them have the same tenor to them where they talked about how, when I was in high school, to be completely honest, I kind of thought some of the writing assignments were dumb. And I kind of wish we could have gone and jumped straight into the wrestling stuff, but I didn't realize that I wasn't mature enough to the point to realize how beneficial it was for me. And now that I'm a little bit older and a little bit wiser, I see that and I can't thank you enough. And none of this stuff is stuff that I've invented. It's stuff that I've stolen from other people, but not from the realm of wrestling, but just stuff that I think that would be really beneficial for young ladies to learn and to practice on a regular basis. I've always said that I've got a daughter, she's 12, and she wrestles for Washburn Rural Middle School. And she's been wrestling for, Lynn's, how long has Lynn been wrestling? 7 years. 7, okay, yeah, 7 years now.
Guest
And
dark.
yeah, yeah, she's over there in the other room. But anyway, she's been wrestling for 7 years now, and we've never taken it that serious with her. It's like we wanted to have fun with the sport. We understand the amount of pressure that comes along with being a coach's kid, especially the kid of two coaches. And so we just want her to have fun with the sport. And I've always tried to approach coaching our program with, what would I want a coach to do at practices where my daughter is present? And how would I want him to run that program if I were not a part of it? And then once I can answer that question, then it's like, okay, that's a very easy compass for me in designing the things that we do and structuring out our practices and our scope and sequence for the entire year.
Yeah. Do you think the focus on mental health is something that's growing throughout sports in high school, or do you think it
Gosh,
still
I hope
has
so.
miles to
I
go?
hope so. And you see some like all kinds of companies springing up. They're trying to carve out their little niche. There's one called Wrestling Mindset where I know what they're doing and it's genius. They're packaging it as, this is the wrestling mindset and there's like, this will help you win and all that. It's just mental health stuff. That's all it is. And it's so smart that they're Trojan horsing this. And it's not geared towards males or females. I mean, if you read it, you would probably assume that it was geared towards males, but they're just basically like having high school kids like, okay, this is the wrestling mindset I need to have. I got to journal every day and I got to show gratitude. I got to do like all these things that we know work, but it's really hard to convince a 15-year-old kid that it's important.
I like it. I like the Trojan horse analogy.
Right.
Well, my last question for you is right kind of back to the beginning of this season specifically. I know state titles are not the focus, but who do the people need to be on the lookout for when it comes to maybe really competing at state?
Throw a dart at our lineup. And I know that
Everyone.
sounds awful to say, but it's true. We there's not a kid that's in our lineup right now that I would say, well, she's probably not going to do well at state. There's not one. And we did just lose a varsity starter due to injury for the remainder of the season, so that'll make things a little bit more difficult. But one thing that's really unique about our program is we have some depth that they don't have in other schools, and so we have some kids. We got a little freshman that came up to us this year, and she's 17-1 on varsity right now because we send our second string to go wrestle against other teams' varsity, and she's 17-1 right now. So she's going to slide right in there, and hopefully we don't miss too many beats there. If you want a specific name, I'll give you one right now. We've got, again, I could list all of our varsity starters, but one that's probably been a big surprise to a lot of people, not to us, but people outside of our room, is Heidi Frazier. Heidi Frazier is a senior. She's been in our program for 4 years now and has never wrestled a quote unquote meaningful varsity match as our first string wrestler. And she has just been absolutely on fire this year. And I can't wait to see what she does as the year goes on.
Awesome. Well,
Um,
anything else you want to add? Miss
yeah,
anything?
it's the one thing I would say to if you're looking for somebody to keep an eye on, check at the end of the first day at the state tournament and see who's still alive. Because it seems like every single year we have somebody where some other coach will come up to me and go, well, now where you been hiding that one? Just a girl that nobody's really heard of that all of a sudden shows up and finishes fifth at state. So that's who you need to look out for. I don't know who that person is yet, but we'll find out soon enough.